Hey everyone, welcome back to Off Trail Treasures. My name is Ben. If you're new to the channel, I try to post one of these approximately once a week. And this week I'm going to be doing a video on research. A lot of you ask me how I do my research, what sort of websites I use and things like that to find some of the old structures that I'm metal detecting. If you're new to YouTube, a lot of you ask me as code for nobody asks me, and I would like them to. So with that in mind, let's get into how I do my research. Hey, I've got to break in here with a confession. Nobody asked me to make this video. Whenever you hear YouTubers say, a lot of you have been writing me and asking me to make a video or answer a question, nobody's been writing them. Nobody's been asking them anything. I like to keep things lighthearted, rib people who take themselves a little too serious. I think the video could be useful. Maybe you'll learn a tip or two. I don't know. Otherwise, hope you enjoy the video. Okay. I would like to apologize in advance to anybody from Fredericktown, Missouri. It is not my intention to ruin your mojo or to have anyone crowd in on your spots, but potentially you may be able to learn something from this, and you may walk out still gaining a little bit after having watched the video. Again, I'm sorry in advance if people head down your way and provide some extra traffic that you are not excited about, but I had to pick a town, and I wanted to pick a town with a little bit of age as well as some older maps, and that led me to Fredericktown, Missouri. So as you can see right here on my screen, what I've started off with is Google Maps. Let me say that I reference, so let's see just how many tabs I have open, about 5 to 6 different websites, and I know that sounds a little complicated. I don't actually use all 5, 6 in conjunction with one another. I do basically, depending on what city or county it's in, I primarily stick to 2 or 3 that I use in conjunction. And here's what I'm trying to do. I am not a door knocker. I don't spend a lot of time trying to get private permissions. What I like to do is I try to find an overlap between public property that was once private. And so I'm looking at older maps and looking for structures that were at one point on ground that is now ideally a public park. I want to say ahead of time, this is my big disclaimer, I have not researched Fredericktown before, and I have not researched the laws in Fredericktown. So anything and everything that I point out to you right here does not indicate that it is legal for you to go to any of these public places in Fredericktown and begin to metal detect and or dig holes. In fact, some of the public land, as I've done a little bit of research ahead of time, just into the maps, I've seen is like right across the street from the Madison County Sheriff's Office. So it is going to be completely up to you to do the research and find out whether or not it is legal for you to metal detect and what means you can go to in that process. And obviously I'm talking about maybe those of you that might be new, you're going to run into everything from metal detecting completely not permitted to metal detecting surface finds only. That means loose change or rings or jewelry that just happens to be sitting right on top of the ground. And then potentially places will let you do what they call probing, and that means you take something that looks a lot like a screwdriver, and a lot of people use a screwdriver, and you poke that down into the hole or into the ground over and over again, attempting to find the hard object that your metal detector picked up, and then you can use the probe to sort of pry open a tiny, tiny hole to extract the object. And then some places are friendly to hand trowels, and others will let you full-blown dig with a shovel that you put down into the ground with your foot. And that is my preferred method, although I don't employ that in almost any public park, because oddly enough, it actually makes a much cleaner hole and a much more easy to repair hole to dig with that, but it gives a different sort of impression, and so they around me do not like the sight of those, but they'll be fine with me digging a much sloppier hole with my hand trowel. Okay, having said all that, do your own research about Fredericktown, whether or not you can dig there at all, whether you can metal detect there at all, but what I really am aiming for here is to show you how to use the various public and free websites that I use to find that sweet combination between public land that used to have private property on it or old structures on it of some kind, that as metal detectorists and people who are fascinated with history and things that people have lost, those are the sort of things that attract us. So I am starting out here on Google Maps. I have zoomed into, let me zoom out a little bit. I have zoomed into Fredericktown, Missouri, which is south of Farmington, a little bit on 67. I've done that because on one of the other websites I'm going to show you, as I was browsing around Missouri, this website has a list of old hand-drawn topography maps, and it has years on them when that map was in use. And as you move throughout the state, it updates the list and shows you for the area on your screen right now, these are the maps that are available. So as I was browsing around the state of Missouri on that website, I came across Fredericktown and saw that the topo maps, as they're referred to on this website, the topography maps, dated back to, I want to say, the early 1900s. I think we'll be looking at a 1909 map, but we'll confirm that in a second. And that showed me that it was old enough to at least garner my interest in wanting to look at it a little bit harder. So I'm going to switch over here to this map to start off with. I like this to begin with because it makes it easier for me to see street names. I know you can see those in satellite maps, aerial views, but I find it a little bit easier to read here. So the first thing that I did when I came here was I just did a search right here in the upper left-hand corner of Google Maps for the word park. And I came up with a few different parks in the area, and a Rotary Park and the Azalea Park Wanda Priest Park. And the first thing that I wanted to make sure of is that these are indeed public parks. There is a park down here, if you'll notice, called the Marcus Memorial Park. I went to go check on the ownership of that plot of land, and it actually did not say that it was owned by the city or county. So that's one that, unless I do a little bit more research, I'm going to steer clear of. However, up here to the north, there were two parks, both of which are on property that is said to be owned by the city of Fredericktown. So let me tell you how I go about finding that out and what draws me to certain areas. So first thing is I've identified two parks. Let's go back to the satellite view. And you can make out approximate locations of the park by seeing these tennis courts. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 baseball diamonds, and then right here a large open area that looks like we've got soccer goals on it. So it's a safe bet, given that the title of the park on Google Maps points to here. It's a safe bet that these areas are part of the park. However, there are sports complexes all over the place that are privately owned. So the next step that we have to take is we have to find the ownership of these plots of land, and it'll also help us to find the borders of them as well. So here is the process that I go about. I am in Fredericktown, Missouri. So what I'm going to do, typically, unless I already know the county, I'm going to come here to Google, fashion Google, and I am going to do this search. What county is Fredericktown, Missouri in? I'm going to get the answer right here, and that it's in Madison County. And then I'm going to do another Google search, and it's going to simply say Madison County GIS. Had I been a prepared YouTuber, I would have looked up what GIS means, because I have forgotten already. But essentially, a GIS is going to be a map viewer that you can use online. At least these online ones are. I don't know if they're all online because, again, I've forgotten what GIS means. But it's going to give you access to a map that you can interact with that shows you the plot, where the legal boundaries are for it. And then when you click it, it's going to give you ownership information. And that part is key. So I've done Madison County GIS, and this happens very frequently for counties with very common names like Jefferson County and counties that were named after popular presidents and things like that. And so what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to weed out things like Madison, Illinois. Nope, I am not in Madison, Illinois. I am in Madison, Missouri. I know from experience that the website that I want to click on is the SEMO GIS. SEMO for Southeast Missouri is a cluster of counties from Southeast Missouri that list their different mapping services all on the same website. That's going to bring me to the Madison County page here, and it's going to tell me a little bit about what it does, a little bit about details about Madison County. And then under county maps right here, it says maps for Madison County. I'm going to expand that, and it's going to tell me that the map available to me by clicking this link right here, Madison County, will show me aerial photos, cities, county, parcels, and other assessment data and roads. There are CMO GIS maps that do not show parcel and other assessment data. One of those, for example, is St. Genevieve County. It's right next door, I believe, to Madison County, and it does not show parcel information, and that's really important to what we're getting ready to do. So then I would click on Madison County, and that's going to open up this map right here. So this is a GIS, or basically, you could consider it kind of like an online plat book of Madison County. You can see the borders are outlined here in red. Many different counties have different software, online software that they use to do this, so they don't all look like this. But in here, the county itself is outlined in red, and as I zoom in, they are all have one thing in common: they are universally slow. And that is a little bit unfortunate for making a YouTube video, but if I have to, I'll fast forward a couple times. But what I wanted to show you is that at a certain zoom in, it actually says Fredericktown on here. I don't really have the patience right now to show it to you, but as you're zooming in, that label appears and then disappears in favor of additional details. But I'm going to zoom in here to Fredericktown, and now I'm going to get my bearings. I'm going to run back over here to Google Maps and see what can I do to get my bearings. One reliable way typically to get your bearings is by finding Main Street in a small town. And what I see here is I have North Main Street and West Main Street, and I have something of a roundabout. Looks like an old town square. And it's a court square right there, actually, and then the Madison County Courthouse right in the middle. So in order to get to where I want to be, I have to go one block west to what Google calls Buford Boulevard, and then north. And I'm going to make note of things like it heads straight north and then bends off to the west to get my bearings. And so I'm going to come back here. Looking at all the yellow grids, it's very easy to see the town square, the town center right here. And these are going to be, I'll zoom in a little bit to see the labels, but I'm guessing these are going to be North Main and West Main. Sometimes these can be a little bit frustrating on when they decide to show you labels, when they don't. But clear enough, this is going to be the town center. One block over is going to be what this map calls Maple. However, I've oriented myself enough to know that it went straight, it bent off to the west, and then it ran into the parks. And that matches pretty to a T what I'm looking at here. So I've oriented myself on this GIS map, and I want to find out whether this thing that Google Maps called a Rotary Park is in fact public, or is it a private club of some kind. So I'm going to click it, and what it's going to tell me is that the owner is the city of Fredericktown, Missouri. So this entire big piece of property is owned by Fredericktown. So everything that I say from here on out is going to assume that it's legal to metal detect in Fredericktown. I do not know that that is the case, but if it weren't, then it would make doing all this research useless. So I'm going to treat it like it is okay to metal detect in Fredericktown. So what I know right now is that there is a large park that is owned by the city, and there are different kinds of metal detectors I've noticed. Some are what are commonly known as coin shooters, and they are out for coins. Some of them are out for modern coins. I have a friend that I know mostly online, but I did meet in person one day by happenstance by driving by a school and saw him metal detecting. His name is Dan, and he is a modern coin shooter. He goes for 3, 4, 5 hour stints and is listening specifically for his metal detector to indicate modern coins. And this guy finds so much modern coins. I know he finds some old stuff too, but his focus is modern coins, is what I believe he told me. And he finds so much of it that he shows us online his weekly or monthly totals by how much they weigh. And we're talking tens and tens of pounds of coins. This guy, he metal detects a lot, and he's also really good at what he does. And he owns a Legend metal detector like I do, which is what we sort of discussed it and bonded over that one time I saw him metal detecting at a school. Hey, Dan, if you're watching this, it was good to meet you the other day. But I like finding old stuff, whether that be relics or older coins. I am far more interested in that. In fact, there's parks all around me that I could go to and dig modern clad all day long, and it's just not where my interest lies. You know, it's to each their own. There's no accounting for taste. Everybody's got different personal preferences. So for me, simply finding a park, number one, that's easy, and that's not the point of this video. Finding parks I could do with Google Maps alone, and with just a little bit of research, I can find out who owns it. My overlap, the thing that I want to do is find out what is public land now that used to be private and or have old buildings on it. And so we've taken a step to identify the public land, and now we want to do the next step, and we want to find out when and if there were old things or old properties or old human activity on it. For that, you can employ a couple of different websites. My favorite is called historicareals.com. And I'll put a link to all of these websites that we talk about in my description below so that you guys get easy access to them. But when you come to this website, it loads up, I think somewhere in Boston, I don't recall. But anyways, this is Tempe, maybe it's Arizona. This is a map of somewhere in the United States that I do not recognize, and it's not even why I'm here, but they allow you to search or put in geo coordinates. I prefer to search most of the time, so I'm going to do Fredericktown, Missouri. I'm going to press enter, and it's going to zoom me into Fredericktown. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the town square, which I can see right here. Here's Buford Boulevard, and as it comes up, it starts to bend to the left, and it even has, it looks like a couple of the baseball diamonds and the tennis courts shown here for me. So if you recall, though, there's a big plot of land right here and a whole bunch of this area right here that were all owned by the city of Fredericktown. Coming back here a little bit, I actually see a plot of land here that is not owned by the city of Fredericktown. And I will try my best to blur out all the private names. That's not what I'm here for. But all of this is publicly available data, so this is not a breach of anyone's privacy. This little plot right here is City of Fredericktown. And this little plot right here is City of Fredericktown. So now we have on the left side of Buford or Maple, whatever this is called, we have this enormous plot of property right here and these two little bitty ones right here that are for sure public property. Now, going back to historic aerials, that I don't know exactly where that is. I know it's around here somewhere. I could switch over to aerials and I could get an aerial view to know about where those areas were, and I'm going to know that it was south of this road right in here and all this property north of here. I find this to be a little too busy, so I like to stick with the atlas because the real reason I'm here is this right here, topos. Now, what this is telling me, I thought I had a little bit older of a map, but I guess not. We'll make do. The oldest topo map that is available for them to display for me is a 1939 topo map with the United States stopping production of silver coins in 1964. This is still plenty old to be able to find plenty of in-use silver coin drops. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here, and what it does is not only will it just show me the topo map, but it will actually overlay the topo map onto the atlas map that I was looking at. And so if you'll keep an eye right here on this creek, watch what happens when I click topo. You will see the creek is in the exact same position. And so right off the square, one block over, a road that goes north and banks west, we know that this is the Maple or Buford that we've been talking about. So if I zoom in, this whole big grassy area that I believe we said was soccer fields, I don't see any structures on this part of the map. A structure is indicated by a black square. Sometimes they have symbols over the top, like a cross is indicative of a church, and a flag is indicative of a school. So nothing over here, but south of the creek, and I'm going to come back to Google Maps for a second, Saline Creek runs right through here. We do have a little bit of public property to the south, so I saw that south of the creek, there was a structure. Now here's one of the reasons why I always start at historicareals.com. Not only is the overlay right on top of the other map, but also wherever my hand is, because there's an actual digital map behind here, wherever I say my hand, but what I mean is my cursor, my mouse cursor is turned into a hand, wherever that is at, it is now showing me a GPS coordinate for. So here's how I use this website. I want to find out whether this little building right here is on public land. And so what I'm going to do is, you could leave your hand right there and write this down, but that is, trust me, before I found this next trick, I found that to be an enormous pain in the butt. So here's what I've done. I've come down here and I will triple click this line of text. 1, 2, 3. And it's highlighted the entire thing. But the cool part is, wherever my mouse goes on the image, it continues to stay highlighted. So I'm going to put the palm of the mouse, or of the hand, right on that structure, and I'm going to hit Control C on a Windows machine to copy that. And I'm going to come back into Google Maps and I'm going to paste it in here. The one thing you do have to do, if you look in the upper left-hand corner right here, I'm going to have to remove that colon. Google does not recognize that colon as a valid character to separate latitude and longitude. So I'm going to remove that and I'm going to press enter. Google is going to think about it for a second, and it is going to put up this red marker right where that structure was. And so what have I identified? I've identified that, sure enough, within these soccer parks that are public property, there was a structure right here in 1939. Now that means that the structure existed in 1939. It could be significantly older than that, but we know at least that there was a structure right here in 1939. It's not too far off the road. It may even be in the sidelines of these soccer fields. I think it's up to everyone to be responsible about how they metal detect and how they dig in places where there's going to be people running, and, you know, things like twisted ankles and stuff are real. But having said all that, Google believes that, Historical Aerials has said that in 1939, they said that in this field, there was a structure. Now, let me say that I have used this a significant number of times, and I believe I have found a structure off of a topo map like this probably 85 to 90% of the time. I can find a foundation or a debris field that indicates that the structure was right there. Of those 85 to 90% of the times that I've found the structure, I want to say that I've gotten, on average, within 10 to 20 yards, and at worst, about 50 yards away. And I know this because the ones that were a little bit further away actually had visible foundations still. But most of the time, I'm within 10 or 20 yards of the old structure just by using the GPS coordinates off of this website. And that is hands down the best reason that I can think of to come straight to Historic Aerials before anywhere else, because having the GPS coordinates for this structure to be able to go right here is just invaluable. But let me do a little bit more cross-referencing, and I'm going to look and see that Buford Boulevard, there's a road that heads west called Sewage Plant. Let's see, Maple, we already know it's Maple on this map. Here is that Sewage Plant Road that it just says private on this map. And pretty clearly the area that we were pointed to looks like it could be, I don't know, 50 feet, 60 feet from the road, maybe. It's hard to get a scale at this elevation, but right here on the assessor's map, the GIS map, I'm going to say that that puts us roughly right here. So just for the sake of using the website for the reason that we have it, I'm going to click here again, and I'm going to see that, yes, this is indeed owned by the city of Fredericktown. So if it is legal to detect in Fredericktown, this should be a legal spot for you to come swing your metal detector and try and find out what was there in 1939 and what did people leave behind. Let's zoom out now on this topo map and let's look for some other structures and see if we can find some other public land. I want to show you something that I have found to be somewhat reliable to indicate publicly owned property in the middle of, say, maybe neighborhoods or something like that. It is not super uncommon. The city that I live in has done this quite a bit, where the city will come in and they will buy up old condemned property, and instead of have the eyesore, they may buy it out of foreclosure. They do this a dozen different ways, but because of the eyesore that the property can become, the city will take control of it and they will demolish it and have simply a blank lot rather than having to deal with something ugly sitting there. And so looking at this old topo map, again, I've done a little bit of this ahead of time, so I know approximately what I'm going for. This right here, I believe, is a square, which indicates structure, with a cross on top, which indicates a church. So still having my latitude and longitude highlighted down there, I'm going to put my palm of my mouse cursor right over that structure. I'm going to copy it. First, I'm going to clear this old one, and then I am going to come back here and I am going to remove that colon, and I'm going to press OK. And it's taken me to a blank lot right here. It said that it was a church, and I could see how potentially this could have been a long, narrow, one of those real high ceiling cathedral style churches, and maybe this was the parking lot. I'm not sure. But in 1939, this was indicated to be a church. Now, if it's legal to metal detect on public land in Fredericktown, is this a public land? Piece of public land. I'm going to come back over here to the Madison assessment map, which is, again, the GIS map. I'm going to find that parking lot with the dirt section next to it, which is right here, and I'm going to click on it and see what it says. It is owned by the city of Fredericktown. So now we have a church, or a torn down church, that was there in 1939. Probably was not built in 1939, so you can count on it having even more age than that. And it is on it was on what is currently public land that you could potentially go metal detect. So I'm seeing a lot of blank parcels here, so I'm just going to go around and actually find out how much public land there is right here. This is owned by the city of Fredericktown. This is owned by the city of Fredericktown. This is owned by the city. This is owned by the city. This is owned by the city. And this is owned by the city. Another area that I saw earlier, just FYI, when I was talking about making sure you know your laws, see this big open lot right here? This is owned by the city of Fredericktown, and this is owned by Madison County because this is the Madison County Police Station, Sheriff's Station. So there may or may not have been, I believe I actually found a structure in this field or this open plot, whatever it looks like, and just made a mental note that it was next to the sheriff's office. So we had a church right here. This is also owned by the city. So what you're seeing is a lot of blank lots that the city has purchased up for one reason or another. And if it's legal to detect there's all this public land that you can see. Like if this was part of a neighborhood, you could completely easily see how this could have had a house here, a house here, and a house here. And so old structures could have stood there, and I'm not going to go into researching every single one of them, but that is a key that I look for in these older towns is property that is now blank that is owned by the city typically indicates an old house was there, it became an eyesore, they bought it up and tore it down. What are some of the other tools that you can use in a situation like this? If, let's say, historic aerials, you're not satisfied with the 1939 map and you want to try and see if there are older maps that could help you to identify old structures in towns or outside of towns, however it happens to match your searching preferences at the time. Another website that I employ is historicmapworks.com. I believe after you load the website and you click browse, you're presented with a map of the world. I've already gone ahead and clicked on America, and now I'm going to click on Missouri. And that is going to load up a closer map of Missouri, and then I'll explain to you how this works. Now we have many different maps and their names along with a date. I can simply search for Madison, and I'm going to have Madison County 1976 and Madison County 1976 again. That is not the age that we're looking for. However, you will find many maps mixed in here that will get you additional information that is oftentimes older than what's available on historicaerials.com. Let's take Adair County, for example. An 1876 map is quite old. And so that's a big advantage over most maps that we find on historic aerials. Now, some of these will be so far zoomed out that you're not going to get the level of detail to see structures, but then others are a close enough view that structures are marked and easily seen where on these different maps. And this is all free websites that are just here for people to use. Let's look at Kirksville, for example, just so you can get an idea of what these larger maps look like, or sorry, these closer in maps look like when they show structures. I think I saw some structures before I zoomed in here. And so this is going to be the city of Kirksville. That's in northern Missouri, and they do have property plots, but they don't have actual structures indicated. So you will find maps just like this, though, with little dots for the structures, just like we were looking at on historic aerials, but they usually have a much broader scope of the types of maps and the age of maps. But on these, you can zoom in by just using the zoom wheel on your mouse and get a more detailed view. That is overall the main go-to series of tools that I use to find old property that is now on public land. That is become quickly my favorite way of metal detecting, partly because I don't like the idea of doing tons of door knocking, but also because I really like doing research. You know, my channel is named, or the subtitle or the tagline is a glory of kings, and that's after a verse in Proverbs that says that it is the glory of God to hide a matter, but the glory of kings to search it out. And that's really hit home for me in the last 5 or 10 years as I've become aware of how much enjoyment I get out of research. And that in part is a personality trait, but because of that, finding these older sites, you know, just that crosshatch of old sites and now public land just really scratches an itch for me. It's my favorite way of doing detecting. I will not pass up old yards by any means. I think today is a Wednesday, so on a Thursday tomorrow, I'm going to go down to a private property that has a log cabin on it that dates back to the Civil War era. And I will never turn down a property like that. It's not that I don't enjoy them, but when I am on my own and I don't have any private properties like that to detect, I will spend hours doing this kind of research and marking these locations so that I can then find them mobile. And that's my primary way of doing research. Let me add one more thing, and I'm going to have to put this into the description to make sure you all know to go to the end here for the most valuable, one of the most valuable ways that I use this. If you'll recall, this last marker that I put here was the church. That one would be kind of easy to find because of the parking lot and the dirt right here. But let me clear this, and let's go back over to this soccer field. If you all recall, I'm going to do an approximate now. We were approximately right here, and Google had put this red marker here for us. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see my Google icon because I'm logged in right here on my desktop. And had I entered in these GPS coordinates, I get my red marker. Because I'm logged in, if I come over here and I click Save, and I do mine as the green flag on here, all my metal detecting spots. Now, let me clear the red marker. Now I have a permanent marker here that I can then use on my phone or view on my phone so that when I come up sewage plant here and I park off here onto the side and I'm trying to figure out where in this big field I need to go to, I can walk right up to this green marker using my phone and know that with some degree of confidence, I should be within 20 or 30 yards from a structure that was there in 1939. So that is my video on how I do research. I will continue to show bits and pieces of research from time to time before I head to a location. I've alluded to the fact in older videos of mine that I don't like going into specific locations that I map, simply because, like anyone may be feeling right now in Fredericktown, again, I apologize, This is a little bit like having a favorite fishing spot or a great spot to hunt morel mushrooms or something like that. You just don't want to give it up. You don't want to see a lot of competition there. You get in, you do the research now that you've learned a little bit about it, and you spend several hours trying to find a good location, and you just don't want to see somebody else there piggybacking on all your hard work. So while I won't volunteer lots of my own sites, I will from time to time just pop in at the beginning of a video and let you know, here's the research that I did that led me to this location, and here's why I'm here, and you'll just get to get more familiar with how I use these tools. In future videos, I will show you a couple of other tools. One of my new favorites is how to use LiDAR, and that is basically a type of a laser that is shot from a plane as it flies overhead. It gets tons and tons of data back, and it is able to cut through things like vegetation, like trees, and give you a picture of firmer, more hardened things on the ground. And so that has helped me to find old foundations through thick tree cover and being able to walk right up to them, and that's been enormously helpful in the past. But that'll come for another video. For now, I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something, and if you want to keep up with us, our treasure hunting adventures, give us a subscribe and a like, and we'll be posting these once a week, and we hope to see you again next time. Thanks.